to get it out into the field, make sure it's going to the right people, and so on and so forth. So I think this is really a diversion. I just don't see this as having anything whatsoever to do with generating revenue, number one, that is true revenue. And the second part of it is, I don't think it addresses the fact that we need to get managerial responses to the situation before us that allows us to say, can we get it down $100,000? Can we get it down $200,000? And you're saying no, and you warned us about this back in August. And that's why some of us up here were concerned about allowing it to slide into, as you said, February I'll be back.
I appreciate you remembering that.
You kept your word. You kept your word. You're back.
Well, I didn't call this meeting. Well, Supervisor, I've known you for several years, and I've had many conversations with you, and intellectually you can do circles around me any day of the week. I want everyone to know that. However, in this situation, I believe I'm correct, because I believe the Sheriff's Office is going to be able to charge for a service that we currently provide and we don't get paid for. We do go out and do compliance checks every day of the year. We do go out and make sure that people are growing within the boundaries of what the law, Proposition 215, allows at a zero cost. So it would be as if Nash Gonzalez came up here and said, we're going to let people build houses without paying a builder's fee. So but go ahead and send out the inspectors and make sure they're doing it right. And so this is merely a device which will allow the county to charge for what we already do. And the money does not go, Mr. Chair pinches it, it doesn't go to the Sheriff's Office, is my understanding. It goes into the general fund, and that's fine. I have no problem with it going to the general fund, because the general fund is what needs help right now.
Well, yeah, and your sheriff and jail budget is totally general fund dollars too, so it's
understood. And the more money that we can put in the general fund, then the more money we're going to have to help all the other county agencies. I know that.
Well, to not get into this, I mean, the bigger issue is can Mendocino County really afford to go after the devil weed anymore? I mean, that's the real issue. But other than that, so I think we got some clear direction to move this issue forward.
Well,
I understand for some services that you are providing.
With the exception of we have several other fees for services that we're providing, not charging for, and so without putting there too, well, I guess I'm going to put you on the spot. And does the offer extend to the other services that we're attempting to provide also? Okay.
Okay. Supervisor Smith.
Thank you very much. I agree with Supervisor Colfax to the extent that it may be real revenue, but I think it's a diversion from what's really before us today, which is budget balancing. That
well, it's an element, though. I think revenue has to be, in any budget solving strategy, revenue has to be, and you've said that many times.
Yes, absolutely. And I think departments, I've said it repeatedly, ought to be looking for more revenue, because they've, in a sense, I think just brushed it under the rug for a long time, not looking for revenue sources because it just was politically not convenient, and they didn't want to come before the Board of Supervisors and go through a difficult process or what they perceived was difficult. But that's just the nature of the work. I think what we really need to talk, and so to the extent that one could get this zip tie program up and running and have it be active, but given the whole time frame in the year, I don't think it's going to generate that much revenue between now and June 30th. And that's really what we're talking about here today. We all know this is a prelude to 09-10, which is right around the corner. So Ms. Angelo did come to the board, and she did say, here's what I've found. It's taken me a year and a half, but here's what I've found, and that there's a structural problem with mental health. We've tried it this way, we've tried it that way. We've worked with the billable hours, we've worked with how we deliver services, we've done these things, and I'm just telling you, it can't work. So I asked Mr. Nash, because he is also in the position of having a budget shortfall, and he said, to some degree, just put on the spot right here, that yes, he sees that there are some structural issues, and so he's going to, I think in the context of both this budget year, but particularly next budget year, he's going to have to look at that. So I guess my question for you is, do you think there's a structural problem? Because we certainly have a cash flow problem, a serious, serious cash flow problem. So what do you perceive, or do you perceive that there's a structural problem within your domain?
Supervisor Smith, I appreciate the question. I'm going to think out loud and say, well, the county's no smaller today than it was 20 years ago. We're 3,510 square miles. The county's much bigger in population. We're at 92,000 citizens. Our crime continues to increase. Our calls for service continue to increase. Our 911 system continues to increase. Our jail continues to increase. So now we have to ask ourselves a societal question regarding the criminal justice system. And whether or not someone should spend time in jail for growing the evil weed, that isn't anybody in this room to decide. Those are for the judges of our county and the judges of the state to make that determination. The sheriff's office is merely charged with the responsibility of responding to crimes, investigating the crimes, and if a judge determines a person to be housed, house them. And if there's a new mousetrap out there that we can use to save money, I'd be willing to work it. We are working to change the entire paradigm of the sheriff's office. We have taken on additional responsibilities, and I don't want to continue to going back there, but the choice is either to cut services or to accept the other responsibilities of public safety that are out there on a daily basis. And as a sheriff, I've chosen to accept the other responsibilities that are falling through the net.
Well, but to the degree that you're accepting animal care and control, so you're accepting the control function, but my understanding is those monetary allocations and budget transfers were also moved over to your department, that you'll be absorbing the positions and the associated revenue.
And when those positions are not filled, Supervisor, we're going to have deputy sheriffs out there who understand the need for public safety and animal control that we've never had this before. So now the vehicles and the tools are going to be at each of our substations, one in
Right.
Fort Bragg, one in Willits, one in Ukiah. And so you're going to see a much more responsive law enforcement agency, public safety agency dealing with animal control. And so
see-
it is a
I
shift in the
understand that.
paradigm.
No, I understand that, and I think maybe the shift in paradigm is a welcome one here. So I can see that it might be a more seamless delivery system and more cost-effective in the long run. But for the direct cost savings that what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to talk with you about both. When I talk about structure, and I'll talk just off the top of my head here like you were, is that you only reference one side of the equation. So what I'm seeing is different from how you're approaching the problem and how Ms. Angelo approached the problem and Mr. Nash is that you only dealt with one side of the equation. In other words, when they talk about a structural problem, they're talking about lack of revenue to fulfill their mission, their desired positions, what they feel needs to occur to do service delivery for the positions they have. They are seeing that there's a disconnect, and they're saying, here's what we're going to have to do about it. And particularly in Ms. Angelo's case, because she spent months working on it, hence culminating in her presentation here today about what she needs to do. So I didn't hear you address that side of the equation. In other words, to me, a structural problem means there's a disconnect between the available monies to do the services, provide whatever it is, and, you know, there's a disconnect between the two. How you're doing your mission, what it's costing you to do it, what you want to do, what you perceive the public wants you to do. There are disconnects throughout this entire organization. That's what, I mean, the entire organization's bleeding. That's what we've been talking about for weeks. So I'd like you to address that. That's what I mean about structure.
Understand, and Supervisor Smith, one of the things that I am very proud of is as I have community meetings monthly throughout this county, and quarterly I'm in Wallala, quarterly I'm in Hopland, monthly I'm in Covelo, and when I'm lucky enough to have time to go to Laytonville, Elmac, I go to there, and of course I meet in Ukiah and Willits and Fort Bragg on a regular basis. And from what I'm hearing from the citizens is they're satisfied with the public safety service they're getting from us. But if you know, we're haven't said the word layoff, but let me throw that word out there. And if you're asking me, Supervisor Smith, am I ready to come in here and suggest, even breathe a